Oh, smart dog.
Yeah.
When I brought this puppy over, Matt goes, she can use our bathroom. Oh, she doesn't use the toilet.
My name is Joseph Morgan. This is my persuasive speech for Com 101. This is my audience. All right.
Does your entire body have to be in it?
Huh?
Entire body?
Yeah, it's fine.
Your feet?
Huh?
Is it
Yeah,
okay
it's
with your
fine.
feet? Okay.
Does it got the cards and everything?
Yep.
All right.
Sure.
All right. So, all right. It's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. As you walk up to the door and peer through the small glass window, you see a man lying on the ground screaming for help. All the residents of the building are screaming and pounding on the walls and doors. The injured man's roommate has just stabbed him multiple times with a sharpened piece of steel and begins to build a barricade between himself and the door. Breathing heavily, he looks you in the eyes, points a sharpened piece of steel at you, and screams, "Pop that door, motherfucker, let's go!" You're a corrections officer. Welcome to work. During this speech, I hope to convince you that corrections officers for the state of Nevada should be paid more money. Being a former corrections officer, having friends that are still working for the prison, and taking my time to research this topic, I have great concern about this ongoing problem. Today I'm going to be talking about the compensation for Nevada correctional officers, the conditions inside the institution, and the solution to solve the wage problem. First, I'm going to talk about the compensation for correctional officers. Corrections officers put their lives on the line every day in the safety of their families. You would think that they would be well compensated for this. Unfortunately, they are not at the Nevada Department of Corrections. An article written by John L. Smith in the Review Journal titled Training, a Joke for Nevada Prison Officers, states that Nevada correctional officers are underpaid and the department is understaffed. This should be concerning to you, considering that these are the people that are keeping the murderers, rapists, and pedophiles locked up so that you can sleep better at night. The annual salary for a correctional officer for the NDOC is $36,000 a month. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, an average salary for a California officer is $75,000 a month. In 2009, the Nevada Department of Corrections decided that they were going to start making budget cuts. They decided that they were going to cut the officer's annual pay and force a furlough day every other month. This is still in effect today, 7 years later. The medical insurance for an officer is $600 a month. The retirement benefits for an officer is another $600 a month. That's $1,200 taken out of an officer's paycheck every month. Officers used to be reimbursed for driving back and forth to work. This can be over 100 miles a day for some officers. This was taken away as well. Some of you might think, why don't they just move closer to the prison? This is simply not possible for some officers who are financially challenged or have families and do not want to pull their children out of the schools. So what does all this mean? This means that the starting take-home pay for a corrections officer in Nevada is $9.80 an hour, with the addition of a furlough day every other month. A publication titled Correctional Officers, Strategies to Improve Retention, published by the Management and Training Institute, states that inadequate pay, wages, and benefits is one of the top reasons why corrections officers leave. This article continues to state that some states have offered incentives in order to retain officers. Texas offers $1,500 for the new applicants, and Arizona offers an additional 10% pay plus $100 a day for certain areas worked in the prison. If you think that just getting a new job is the answer, you are mistaken. These officers truly love what they do, and some of them feel that they are making a difference in their community. Besides, if all these officers quit their job, then who would be there to stop these criminals from re-entering society and possibly moving into your neighborhoods? Now that you know a little bit about the compensation, second I'm going to talk about the conditions inside the prison. I was employed at High Desert State Prison. This prison holds an average of 3,500 inmates and employs an average of 400 officers. Split between 3 shifts, that's 133 officers in control of 3,500 inmates at one time. An interview with officers from High Desert, conducted by a staff member at the website Corrections One, explains that Corrections officers get very little training in the form of a 6-week academy and are not issued tools to gain control in an aggressive situation. Officers are not allowed to carry OC spray, tasers, or batons. They're expected to fight off inmates with their bare hands. One officer can be in control of 200 inmates at one time. So you can see how this is, the likelihood of you surviving that attack is really not in your favor. Idaho State Prison loses about 200 officers a year. This leaves the safety and security of the institution in the hands of officers with little to no experience. There are more inmate fights, drug trafficking has increased, and inmates are getting hurt from inexperienced officers making mistakes. This in turn forces the officers to either lose their job or have criminal charges brought up against them. The low wages are forcing some officers to be compromised by some of the inmates. This is where the inmate's family pays the officer to smuggle in drugs, tobacco, or cell phones. Now that you know a little bit about the conditions, third, I'm going to explain the solution to increase the officers' wages. According to Michael Leachman, the Director of State Fiscal Research for the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, people sent to prison and the length of prison terms are under the direct control of policymakers. Reforms aimed at reducing prison sentences would reduce the cost for housing inmates and increase the budget for correctional staff and training. He also goes on to say that there are 4 reforms that would solve these issues. The first would be to reclassify low-level felonies. The increased use of prison to punish crimes such as marijuana has greatly increased the mass incarceration. The second would be to expand the use of alternatives to prisons and divert people with mental health issues or drug problems to mental health facilities or drug rehabilitation instead of prison. The third would be to reduce the length of parole and probation. And the fourth would be to restrict the use of prison for technical parole violations. In 2013, a quarter of the people that were sent to prison was a parole revocation. And some of these were sent because of a statistical error where they didn't make a parole hearing or they failed a drug test. So now they take room up into the prison and it costs us more money. California's Legislative Analyst Office estimated that reforms like these would reduce the prison population in California by thousands and save hundreds of millions of dollars for the state and corrections. Elisa Finley, an assistant editor for the Wall Street Journal, explains that California corrections officers can look forward to a job with great benefits and a starting salary between $45,000 and $65,000 a year. She continues to say that only 1.7% of officers dropped out of the academy last year. Increasing the officers' wages creates retention, it increases the number of applicants, and it allows human resources to spend better time and screen applicants to get better officers. The better officers reduces the amount of officers that would be compromised and reduces the amount of contraband being brought into the prison. So in conclusion, if we can convince policymakers to create reforms to reduce prison populations, we can direct more funds towards staff. We can see in other states that incentives and higher pay has created retention and made the job more likable for applicants. Today I talked about the conditions inside the prison, the solution to solve the pay raises, and the compensation for the officers. So the next time that you are reading an article and you are hearing the article criticize officers for the treatment of inmates and the job that they are doing, remember what you learned today. And hopefully some of these reforms will be implemented so that not only will the officers get paid more, but that the prison would be a little safer. Because next time it may not be an inmate that's laying on the floor bleeding out. All right.